The Patriots take on the Bills for tonight's Monday Night Football matchup. This short is brought to you by Footballguys.com. Save time, worry less, and win more with us. First place in the AFC East is on the line in tonight's game with major playoff implications here as well. If you like defense, this is the game for you. The Patriots and the Bills are the NFL's top two scoring defenses on the season. Pats are on a hot streak, 6 wins. Mac Jones seems to be hitting his stride, and they're currently the number one seed in the entire AFC. How about that for a rebuild that took all of 1 year? The Bills have dropped a lot of their games in the last 6. They look to reclaim the AFC East tonight at home. Over-under is 40.5 points, with the weather forecast calling for rain and snow throughout the day, leading up to the game with wind gusts potentially at 40 miles per hour. It could feel like 12 degrees out there with that wind chill. Going to be chilly and potentially low scoring. Let's get into the fantasy impacts here. For quarterback, start with Josh Allen. We get to see Daddy in primetime tonight, the QB1 overall through 12 weeks of the season. We'll see where he lands after tonight's tough matchup, but this game rests on Josh's shoulders. In big game situations in the past, he tended to play a little bit nervous, get a little jittery, coughing up the ball sometimes. So if he can stay poised and protect the football, that's the key for the Bills winning this matchup. New England allowing the fewest points to the quarterback position since week 8, but of course you're still playing Allen, keeping our expectations a little lower than usual with the weather and the opponent in mind, of course. Other side of the ball, the Bills are allowing the second fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks since week 8. This is Mac Jones' first test in quite some time. He's the overall QB 11 since week 6. He's been exceptional as a rookie. He's taken care of the ball really well, only 3 interceptions in that same time span. I still don't trust him enough in this matchup tonight. Have him as a low-end QB2 in a tough matchup. His first time in Orchard Park in Buffalo with the crowd, likely the most wild and loud it has been all season. Moving on to wide receivers. New England and Buffalo, they're giving up the fewest and second fewest points per game to wide receivers, respectively, since week 8. So the receivers in this game will be challenged for certain. Bills wide receiver Stefan Diggs, he's locked into your lineup. He's redeemed himself as the overall PPR wide receiver 2 since week 10, averaging 23 points per game. He was the wide receiver 21 overall in weeks 1 through 9. So he's getting his groove in. Last year, Diggs had a respectable game against the Pats in week 8. I think he had 15 fantasy points. He absolutely exploded in week 16 against the Pats. 9 receptions, 145 yards, and 3 touchdowns against them. So J.C. Jackson is an incredible talent on the outside. Sometimes struggles covering Diggs, though. So, of course, you're playing Stefan Diggs. You're hoping he can overcome the elements in this game. And as far as the Bills' secondary wide receiver options go, Beasley and Sanders, I'd play them as low-end wide receiver 3s tonight. Sanders' production has dropped immensely. He's hard to trust. He's a boomer bust wide receiver 3. Josh tends to look downfield to him. It wouldn't shock me, though, if Beasley was a centerpiece on third downs tonight, eating up those short route slot receptions to move the chains, if most of the cornerback attention is probably going to be on Diggs, as it should be. As for the Pats wide receivers, they've been pretty all right the last couple months as Mac Jones has improved as a passer. Kendrick Bourne, quietly the overall PPR wide receiver 14 since week 6, 14 points per game. Jakobi Meyers is a wide receiver 30 in that same time span. I'd be playing Bourne tonight as low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3. Very tough matchup. Meyers, a low-end wide receiver 3. He's actually had 14 points per game in 2 of his last 3, albeit they were against Cleveland and Tennessee, a little bit banged up. And with Tre'Davious White, cornerback for the Bills, out for the season, Bills' other cornerbacks, Levi Wallace, Taron Johnson, Dane Jackson, they're going to need to step up big time for this pivotal matchup tonight. Moving on to running backs. The Bills' running back room has been a head-scratcher all season. Matt Breida has emerged as the Bills' most efficient running back option since week 10, but his box score only tells one story. It's worth noting he's only played 32% of the snaps on average the last couple of weeks. So while he's efficient with his touches, the RB16 overall from weeks 10 through 12, it's tough to rely on this efficiency, knowing he's only played that small percentage of snaps. Still, he would be the back I'd play given that usage. Singletary playing 38% of snaps in weeks 10 and 11, 68% in week 12, though not much fantasy production to show for it. New England giving up the 12th most points to the running back position since week 8, surprisingly. Damien Harris and Rhamondre Stevenson, they've played an almost identical snap share since Harris was out in week 10. Now, this backfield is similar to the Bills. We don't really know with any confidence who will get the most run or be the most efficient with their touches. My bet is still on Harris to play if you have them both. even though the Bills, they're giving up the 13th most fantasy points to running backs since week 8. They should be getting Star back from the COVID list. He's their primary run stuffer. This should be a huge advantage for the Bills getting him back, along with Tremaine Edmonds is healthy as well, allowing their linemen Ed Oliver, Harrison Phillips, etc. to control the middle. So New England will likely still try to control the clock with their run game, as they always do. So this is a huge test for Buffalo's defense. I'm playing both running backs for New England as low in RB2s. I hope they fall into the end zone. Moving on to tight ends, Dawson Knox, the tight end 4 overall on the season with only 9 games played. New England's allowed the 4th fewest amount of points to tight ends since week 8. Here's a few of the tight ends they've played, though. Tyler Kroft, Adam Troutman, Dalton Schultz, Jared Cook, Austin Hooper, Kyle Pitts. Nobody jumps out at me that's an elite tight end option, so I'm still plugging Knox into my lineups tonight. It's a mid-range tight end 1. 7 touchdowns on the season, the most in Buffalo franchise history in a single season for a tight end. Josh trusts him in the red zone, and Knox has played 90% of snaps over the last couple of weeks, total of 13 targets combined in that time span, averaging 16 points per game. Worth noting, Kyle Duggar, safety for the Patriots, placed on the COVID list early last week. He still has a chance to suit up, but his absence would be a huge void for the Pats defense. He's been great at containing tight ends lately over their dominant stretch, so if he's out, that bodes really well for Knox. Moving on to Hunter Henry, the tight end 7 overall in the season, being propped up by usually having 1 touchdown per game, as most tight ends need that to be relevant in fantasy. The last 2 weeks, though, Henry has not scored a touchdown. He had 4.5 and 3.6 PPR points. So if you're willing to ride it out with him, it's not a bad idea to ride with one of the few tight ends who have that touchdown upside every single week. Worth noting, Buffalo is allowing the 2nd fewest points to the tight end position since week 10. You're not playing Jonnu Smith in this scenario. Let's all collectively pour one out for the Jonnu Smith fantasy production this year. Glad he secured that bag to block. Smart man. As always, thank you for watching. Head over to footballguys.com and use our awesome free tools for making your most optimal lineup decisions. We've got snap share, game logs, target share, as well as some of our premium membership tools like fantasy points allowed to each position. That's all on there to create your most optimal lineup each week. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your matchups tonight.